Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. So are you, I'll bet.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having a chat with American trumpet virtuoso, and we're going to talk about another instrument, cornet in this particular case, but American trumpet virtuoso Luke Spence, about his really fascinating, very interesting 2022 Tonzean CD release with pianist Andrew Welsh, wonderful pianist. It's called 20th Century Art Songs Translations for cornet and piano. And the word translations is very, very important. You're going to talk to us about it in a minute. So on this CD, everybody, oh, by the way, all this information, including about this new CD label that began in 2020, I think. It all goes up on performingartsreview.net, so there's going to be all kinds of links and stuff, even to your doctoral dissertation, Luke, that is all about what also became a CD, and
Yeah.
you have told me there's also a video of the CD, and so all that good stuff's going on. But just to give everybody an idea, here are the composers from whom you gathered arias that you thought would work well in translation, which you'll discuss with us, from voice directly. You'll talk about that, from voice to cornet in this case, and that's a wonderful choice. That mellower,
Oh,
more human voice range, if you will, that mid range kind of thing, choice for these songs. Here are the composers: Gustav and Alma Mahler, Alban Berg, I should have said, and a late romantic piece of his as a young person, and then into the period of his composition that we know more familiarly. Arnold Schoenberg, Lily Boulanger, very interesting. Olivier Messiaen, Maurice Ravel, Francis Poulenc, wonderful translation. Charles Ives, Florence Price, Leslie Adams, and Libby Larson. So let me make sure everybody's clear. Songs, leader from these composers that you have decided translate well
yeah.
to cornet. And again, I'm going to let you speak to that a little in just a minute. But first, who is this Dr. Luke Spence? Salut, it worked. Dr. Luke Spence, you're a performer, recording artist. This is all from your thing. Educator, and you're based in Baltimore.
Yeah.
You're a lecturer of trumpet at Frostburg State University. You gig around a lot and have over the years, but second trumpet of the Washington Chamber Orchestra and a member of the award-winning chamber group in that area, I guess, Anima Brass. What else? You mentioned another community college or something. You're an adjunct professor or
Yes,
something.
adjunct at Frederick Community College out in Frederick, Maryland. And yeah, I gig, I perform anywhere, up and down the East Coast, wherever I can get work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that. Anyway, and then tell me a little bit about Andrew Welch, because things he apparently has changed his activities a little bit. Give us an update on pianist Andrew Welch.
Yeah, so Andrew is a dear friend and colleague who I met at the University of Maryland, where we were both. I did my master's and my doctorate there. I believe he did too, and we both graduated with our doctorates at the same time. So he was actually working on his doctorate while he was helping me with these. So that, I mean, he's just one of the easiest people to work with, and just a phenomenal human being. He was extremely helpful working together. He's used to coaching vocalists, so to have someone with that sort of experience doing this, it was just it was great. So he's based, I believe, I believe he's in Rhode Island, and I think he's doing some stuff at Princeton University. Though I could be wrong about all of that. All I know is I haven't seen him in a while. He's moved up north.
Luckily,
So
we don't get
yeah,
ugly letters anymore from anybody. It's such a sweet thing. Well, that's good to hear about.
yeah,
Get a little update about Andrew, and the idea that the two of you worked on PhD. That you're at PhD level. And again,
yeah.
this CD, this concept is your PhD dissertation. If I haven't said that 18 times already,
Yes,
so it's very,
yeah.
very
So
interesting.
it's a DMA, Doctor of Musical Arts.
DMA,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
yeah,
Now, a little backstory, simply because everybody's interested among us in colleagues. I'm interested in my own thing. I had no clue what was going on as a kid, and then somehow I became a conductor. Go figure. But tell me, at what point, what the influences, when was a trumpet stuck in your face, or was something else there earlier,
Yeah.
like
Well,
accordion?
accordion. I actually, yeah. So fourth grade. Was when in elementary school, as most people, when
Same.
you're allowed to play a wind instrument. I had the option in third grade to play a string instrument. For some reason, wasn't interested in that. No offense to anyone who plays a string instrument. I started out actually playing the flute. That was the first instrument that I played, and it didn't last long. Unfortunately, experienced some, being a young boy playing a flute, which was deemed at that time a girl's instrument,
Yeah.
right? Especially being a young gay boy, and not wanting to ruffle any feathers, and so I was playing that instrument, got made fun of quite a bit. So I ended up switching to trumpet, and it's
That's a
a
real
damn
macho
shame.
instrument. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Oh yeah, it fit right in.
But
Um,
by the way, our stories are really quite similar. Fourth
yeah,
grade, the film is played, or instruments of the orchestra. I fell in love with piccolo. I
yeah.
immediately wanted to do piccolo, and they said, "Oh, no, 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 no," and then, "Oh, well, flute." And they said, "No, no, no, that's a girl's instrument." So they slammed a clarinet into my face, and I played clarinet for whatever 20, 25 years. But so you see, as we both agree, it's just ridiculous, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But somehow
It's
you came
very
out okay. So
silly.
did I. So
I did.
we survived. And my fourth grade was in another world, the late '50s, America in the late '50s,
Yeah.
if you get my drift. So it was even worse, if you will, the prejudices and the stereotypes and all that thing. Okay, so in other words, flute was too femme for you, so they threw a trumpet at you, and you went okay.
Yeah, to be honest, I think I took to the trumpet a lot more naturally. I mean, I remember trying to get a sound out of the flute, and I just couldn't for the longest time.
Huh.
So I took, pretty naturally to the trumpet. And then at a certain point, it became me. And some people ask, when did you decide, to be really serious about it? Or when did you decide that you wanted to, do this for the rest of your life? There was never a point. It was almost a given. I developed, a lot of talent for it. I worked really hard, and I don't know. There was never a moment. I was just like, well, yeah, well, of course,
Perfect.
this is what I do now. This is, this is who
Perfect.
I am. So, yeah,
Perfect. So we did that. Now we've kind of touched on Tone Zayn, this new CD album, record producing company, and they're North American based, circa from about 2020, and as we all know, it's hard. So you want to give me a little? Is there a little bit of a story about how come you came upon them or they came upon you?
yeah. So when I was doing this, which was originally my dissertation, recording these songs, and the video recordings actually come straight from that. I knew of this company called Arts Laureate, and it is sort of a local company, but they record all over the world. So I know that they were sort of based in Maryland. Neil Brown, who was my recording engineer, a good friend of mine, also a trumpet player, a great colleague. So naturally, he was kind of one of the first people that I said, hey, would you be interested in taking this on? Also, to have another trumpet player in the recording booth was extremely valuable. So anyway, so they developed this. I apologize. I live on a one-way street, so you might get some sirens every
I
once in a
live
while.
on a similar street, and we may get sirens. Go ahead, or
Right. Okay.
ambulances.
So Tone Zayn was born from Arts Laureate,
Mm.
and they are, like you said, I think around 2020. So right now, I mean, they have maybe 10 CDs that they've released in the past couple of years. So they are a growing company, and I love that I'm able to support them, that I was able to work with them. Chris Gecker, my professor mentor from the University of Maryland, released a CD on there. Stanley Curtis, he's in Colorado teaching. Jacob Gallagher, another friend of mine, all trumpet players. He's in the University of New Mexico. we've all been putting out CDs. So I wouldn't call it a trumpet label, but there are quite a few trumpet players that have been
Yep,
releasing
and I also,
from this.
as a conductor of wind ensembles for many years, the big wind ensembles in Seattle, um, I noticed, Texas State University or North Texas State University Wind Ensemble. I think the wind orchestra repertoire is very, very important because I conducted
Yeah,
it for many, many years. So that I noticed, and as I mentioned earlier before we recorded, I was chasing the Grand Rapids Symphony because they have just put out a CD as well. I'm so
right.
curious to hear that orchestra. In your CD booklet, you describe, here we go, ready for your dissertation? You describe the challenge and meaning of really two different concepts. This idea of transcriptions, because you could have said, you could have approached this as transcriptions of these arias for cornet and piano, and translations. And apparently you pulled this message off because you have your PhD now. So, but what I want you to do is tell us all this, and it's a very interesting but and subtle distinction between transcribing something and just plain. You'll tell us putting the music down and playing the vocal part.
Right, right.
Go.
So the word translation, I actually didn't even come up with it. It was born in my dissertation defense, which was given in April of 2020. So it was over Zoom, very similar to this. I may have even been wearing the same shirt. I'm not sure.
Times
Craig
must have been
Keir,
tough.
yeah. Craig Keir, who is the director of opera studies at the University of Maryland. He's the artistic director of the Annapolis Opera. He was a wonderful committee member and just helped me tremendously. And he was the one who actually said, what you're doing is very different from a typical transcription. And he said, that word doesn't even really describe what you're doing here. My approach is very holistic. It's entirely informed by the text, the sound of the text being spoken, and the meaning of the poetry itself. And it's a way of translating the best parts of the trumpet and the best parts of the voice and putting them together. I was actually just in Texas for a couple of weeks. I was at the International Women's Brass Conference judging some competitions, and then at the International Trumpet Guild Conference. And many people approached me, handing out my CDs and stuff. And many people approached me and said, "Well, hey, I'd love to buy your transcriptions." And I said, "Well, if I were to publish something, it would look identical to the vocal score, with save maybe transposing it if it might makes it easier for a student." So my philosophy is that all of the information you need to create a compelling performance of this art song is right there. It's right there, and you have to do a little bit of homework, I think. You have to be a musicologist. You have to do the background. You have to see when these pieces were written and what the context was around it. So, yeah, what I was doing was translating these works onto the trumpet rather than transcribing it, because I don't want to remove any essential context for the listener.
But did you
Yeah.
literally? I'm still a little bit unclear. Literally sit down and play the vocal line. I mean, literally, it was
Yeah.
the aria.
I mean, yeah. I just I got the music, ordered the music, went to the library, got all the pieces, and if I needed to transpose, I did that. But it's almost like reading a map, and there's a key, and you kind of have to decipher. What does this mean? You look at the legend. Or what does that mean? What does that mean for me? What does this word in German, right? Schlief, for example. Okay, how do I get that to sound pleasing on the trumpet? And there were some instances where I wanted to kind of copy the sound of those words with my articulation, maybe using a harder ta as opposed to a da, a nice da, or the accents of the syllables in the word. If it's just a two-syllable word, schlafen. I don't know. I keep using the word sleep in German. Schlafen. The first one's going to be has a little bit more oomph. So you have to understand languages to a degree. I'm not fluent by any means, but you have to figure out what that means how to translate it to your instrument within reason. You know, Nacht, right? There's one of the songs of the Mahler Rückert later that I didn't end up doing, Mitternacht, right?
Mm.
And the word Mitternacht, it's strophic, and you know it ends, Nacht is the end of every line. Well, if I were to tongue stop that note on the trumpet, that would just sound really bad. So there were certain things that I had to look at and say, okay, maybe not. This helping the music, or is it not? And that to me was the really fun part,
Okay,
was
and
deciphering. Yeah,
not to be redundant, but I'm trying to help everybody to kind of understand this idea, including me, in that you are trying to inflect on the instrument, if you can allow. I'm being awfully literal. The timbre of the voice as it is singing particular words, right? You're trying
absolutely.
hard to
Yeah,
match the timbre of these vocal words and vocal inflections on the cornet. So it's really much more sophisticated than just plumping down the score and playing the vocal on cold turkey. Is much more sophisticated in terms of what you have to then kind of, as you said, research and think about to create the right timbre, the right quality of sound for the words. Yeah, something like that.
yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a lot of this music is much more than just a pretty melody, and in fact, some of them are not pretty melodies. You know, some of them are quite guttural and quite quite out there. So it's yeah, it's much more than that, and that's what I was really trying to convey. The the art of the art song. That I've listened to many performances over the years of it's very common in brass playing world, or instrumental world. Franz Liszt did Schubert transcriptions, right? So it's very common, to do this sort of thing. But I always found those performances, I can tell when someone knows the text and when they
Mm-hmm.
don't, and I can tell what their extent of wanting to incorporate that is, and for me, that translates to a performance that is compelling in my opinion, or not. So this is, again, and I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but I'm saying I like it, I love it. I hope my listeners love it, and I hope they can glean just a little bit, from what I was able to do without there being the text there. Um, which is why I did the videos, by the way. The videos, there's a video playlist, so you have the subtitles in real time, so that you can comprehend a little
Nice.
bit more of that,
Oh,
because
for
it's
sure. We'll
not.
get that up on
Yeah,
the page for sure. Well,
yeah,
okay. I think I'm ready for you to traipse through the. Oh, just a quick question. Based on what
yeah.
you've said, how on earth much repertoire did you have to dig through? Throw in this, throw in that, throw. There's this might work. You know what I mean? What kind of a
Yeah.
nightmare was that?
Oh, quite the contrary. It was not a nightmare at all. That was
Forget. I knew
my
I'd get in trouble
my.
on that. I knew I'd get in trouble on that one. But
That
still,
was one of
quite a lot of
my
repertoire
favorite
you had
parts.
to get through, right? You had to kind of
Oh
peruse.
yeah,
Kind of.
and there were some tunes that I didn't quite get to record, um, due to the time constraints that we
Sure.
had. I was maybe a little bit too ambitious, in terms of my programming. So, but that was the best part. Just the beginning research part of this was great. Just diving in headfirst to vocal repertoire, and I speak to some of this, in my dissertation. How do you choose this, right? Well, of course, you look at the range, right? So there's some things, if the range is way out there, too high or too
Mm-hmm.
low, might not work, right? If there is a lot of recitative, which is entirely text driven, um, maybe not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. There are some moments in some of these songs that have a little bit of recit in there. So there are certain things that I look out for, and frankly, when I started this project, I listened to these and I thought, yeah, that might work, but I wasn't positive, and it wasn't until I did it that I was, kind of fingers crossed. I hope this works. I hope this, and I believe that it does. So, but not everything translates well. I will say that. So you have to, do a little bit of digging
Hmm.
to find that out. Yeah.
So very interesting. You just did a little bit of apologist at me, I do believe, which is completely unnecessary, by the way. Yet, I was about to begin because I remember sitting down this morning and hearing the very first Gustav Mahler of the three Gustav Mahler arias. Are all three from Richard? I think so.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. And Danger, because a couple of them are so famous, as vocal works, and so I kind of allowed this daring, to dare this, and I was also thinking about what you've just explained about how to color the instrument so that it mimics, if you will, the implication of text and so on. Yeah. So I went into, we're looking at, oh God, I'm going to speak it in English because, I'm going to, what the hey, Ich Achmet, einen Lindenduft. I breathed a gentle fragrance.
Breathed a gentle fragrance. Yeah.
From the Richard Lieder. Again, in this case, all three of these I think are from are this 1901-1903 period. Just to, you do need to put things in a certain historical, if you will, musicological as well historical context. So we're talking the very beginning of the 20th century. You're doing perfectly in terms of organizing this CD and your intention, 20th century. You start right at the beginning. And I wasn't sure with the three Mahler selections, but I did find, and we'll talk about it, the second Mahler track on the CD, this, here we go again, Liebst du Schönheit, if you love for beauty, from the Richard Lieder again. And here's what I said, just off the top of my head today, and then you can extemporize on it, because that one really got me. I love the sensitivity of the pianist, fabulous. And then I say to myself, this one really translates well to cornet. Maybe because it's more solidly in the middle to middle high register of the instrument. I hope I'm not, I'm not a trumpet player, so I hope I'm not out of line there. But talk to me about this this particular aria, If You Love for Beauty.
Yes. So this is actually the last of the Ruckert songs in terms, chronologically speaking. It was written, I believe, a year after the other ones. This is, Mahler's middle period. You think
I wasn't clear.
Symphony number 5.
I wasn't clear there was that gap. Very interesting. Yeah. Go ahead.
So
sorry.
It was, shortly after his marriage to Alma, and then this was actually sort of a gift for her. It was the only love song he ever wrote, and it was during a particularly tumultuous time in their marriage. Not that there was ever not a tumultuous time in their marriage, but he wrote that for her, and you see a lot of his insecurities actually coming out in that poetry. If you love for beauty, don't love me. Love the sun, for she has golden hair, right? If you love riches, don't love me. Love the mermaid for her pearls, right? If you love youth, he was, I think 20 years or something older than she was. Like if you love youth, don't love me. Love the spring, for it is young every year. So he's touching, he wasn't a looker, compared to her. He was much older, and he wasn't, as wealthy as he'd like to be. Those are his insecurities. You can hear that a little bit in some of the tonality that's in the song. But then the final part is, if you love, then yes, love me, and I will love you forevermore. So I mean, just stunning poetry, and the music is, the music and the poetry are hand in hand. It is just, the text painting, the colors is just phenomenal. And the range that it's in, I think it's a beautiful range on the trumpet. So it's, you're kind of hanging out at the top of the staff, not really high, but not low, but you're kind of sitting there. And I think there's a little bit of, there's some intensity in that register too, which I think, underneath all of this, it seems like a love song, but there's kind of this desperation that I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, very insecure, really, this man. But it's also a charming thing.
It really is.
If you want somebody he makes every effort to essentially say, maybe I'm not right, and of course he knows very well that he is in this case. So choosing this Richard poem is really nice, and maybe because of that, of the three, this one might be the most touching to me, or something. But it really got to me. I thought it was beautiful. They're especially beautiful, and for all the reasons we've discussed, especially about how that cornet uh, sings the words, if you will, and we've already discussed that you don't have to know the words, but it just felt beautiful. Not that the other two
Yeah.
don't, by the way. Do you have any comments about how you organized these three? As you said, for example, the Liebst du is the last of the series in
Yes. So,
chronology.
yeah, typically when in performances of the record later, and it is not a cycle; it's a collection of songs.
Mm.
So there is no first, second,
Okay,
third, middle,
gotcha.
and
Yeah,
there are
good
five
point.
songs. So there were two of them that I had to say goodbye to. Just I couldn't. That'd be uh, too much of the CD devoted to Mahler.
Mm.
So these are three of my favorites. Actually, the final one, Ich bin der Welterbahn gekommen, I'm lost to the world, it's one of the most, I think, touching
And everybody
uh,
knows it. You know what I mean?
songs.
It's so
Everyone knows it.
popular.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That one's very near and dear. So typically people do Ich atme einen Lindenduft as one, and typically you either end with Ich bin der Welt or Mitternacht, the one with the at the end. So it was just sort of, I felt like that had a nice flow to it, and then we go into Alma Mahler, and the rest of
Oh,
the second Viennese school. Yeah.
When I saw that coming, when I saw the alma mater, the Alma Mahler, first of all, I was grateful. It's
Yeah.
not very. I'm not familiar with her very much at all, really. To the victor goes the whatever. This goes the history or something. She kind of took a second level, no offense to Gustav, but this hymn of praise from Fünf Gesange, 1924. See what I mean? I probably mispronounced Gesange. 1924. Poet is Richard Damer, I believe.
Yeah.
Help me with that. It was just so beautiful. It's such an amazing aria, and it works beautifully in cornet. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, that one was just a treat. So, some of these, some of the poetry is a lot more accessible. I think the Rückert leader, the Rückert, Friedrich Rückert
Yeah.
poetry is a little bit more accessible. The Libby Larsen poetry, that's good old fashioned fun. This one, and the Lily Boulanger, it's there's a lot of symbolism. So it gets a little bit difficult
And
to
there is
kind of understand what all this is
there
about.
is a bit of lamentation even in the introduction. There's a hint of something. That was the word that came to my mind. How off am I? You know what I mean? And you speak about the mystery, but in this case, to me there was this mystery. Somehow a sub-basement of a kind of lamentation, or go. Get me out of this hole.
Yeah, talking about the depths of the ocean. There's lots of water imagery in this whole thing. Indistinguishable, unfathomable. And the deep currents, and there's just a vastness, and with that kind of almost a hopelessness. Associated with that,
How Freudian.
and yeah, right. And then at the end of it, they're talking about love and infinity, and there's this beautiful, crescendo in the vocal line, and then this tremendous, towering chords in the piano. It's just it is, that's why I wanted to put this on the CD. And there was a couple of other alma malers that I had to cut. As I said, I bit off more than I could chew. I was very, very happy to put this on there, because it is a tremendous
Beautiful
work
choice.
of hers that deserves to be heard. Yeah.
And again, the register area for the cornet just seems to work. The colors it's beautiful. The colors work very well. As I say to myself, the translation works very well here. It feels good.
Yeah.
It sounds good. It works perfectly. It's really an interesting aria for the reasons we've just discussed, and interesting translation on your part. Also, we mentioned earlier that, or maybe before we started filming, but that at the studio, your pal, another trumpet player, is one of the sound engineers, and that explains everything about picking up without any sort of, not to say distortion in some corny, in some elementary way, but the subtleties of the instrument, of the sound, of the ambiance of the instrument in a recording studio. So that's really was good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so much of this was, I mean, we talk about timbre, so exploring the different colors of the cornet, and so much of the timbre comes from the articulation, and that was, by far the largest portion of my dissertation. That is, one of the best ways of being able to convey the text, and there's so many times, you think of German as such a guttural language, and it is in some regards, but uh, not as much as English, frankly. But there's sometimes in thinking about the alma mater where I really strive to come in and to convey this sort of vastness and stuff. I didn't want to hit the note
Yeah,
and
yeah.
raw and just looking to speak. So having Neil Brown in the booth, and us being able to listen, and he knew exactly what to listen for. So we spent a lot of time. He took a lot of care to make sure all of those articulations, everything was just exactly what we wanted.
And then you also include on this CD two Alban Berg pieces, an early piece, as in his late romantic uh,
Yeah,
compositional style, and then a piece that's more in the you know it better than I do, Professor, but this recognizable Alban Berg
yeah,
um, temperament. How's that? But the first one is really charming, the late 19th century piece, and it's so nice to hear even an
yeah.
Alban Berg from his earlier time. Liebesode, Ode to Love, from Siebenfreie Lieder. I hope I got that. Again, composed in roughly 1905 to 1908. The poet is Otto Hertel-Ben, I believe. Bottom line
Yep.
is you're again working your way up. Sometimes chronology works, sometimes not, but I think in this case this is really quite nice. And then you jump the chronology because the earlier Berg obviously is from 1900 or something, and then
Right.
the second piece, the Schlösser
19,
mir die Augen.
1925, right?
You can pronounce it better than I can. The Close Both My Eyes is from 1925. Text by Theodor Storm. So,
Yeah.
yeah, well done. But talk to me about these two in terms of what you had to deal with about this translation, if you will.
Sure, sure. So I love both of these songs. The Sieben frühe Lieder, the seven early songs of Berg. Actually, pretty well known cycle. I believe the San Francisco Symphony just did a recording of them.
Yes, yeah.
And I don't even remember which number this is in the cycle. Maybe the last one. The Ode to Love. It's actually kind of about sex. You can, it's talking about the falling asleep, and then having wonderful, rich, intoxicating dreams, right? So reading between the lines, you can hear this, it gets a little bit more climactic
Kinky.
and stuff. Yeah, kinky. Yeah, but it's, it took a couple reads to be like, okay, oh, that's what this is about. Okay, I know what to do now. Yeah. So, that was a ton of fun. Really long lines. Just, without lots of ebbs and flows and stuff, but it is, it is just steadily driving and just a beautiful song. And then the Schließe mir die Augen beide, I closed my eyes at parting, was actually his first 12-tone song.
Oh, really? The first?
The very first, yes. And it's
Nice.
it is just a gorgeous. This one took a lot of practice, because the melody is so angular. But I mean, now it doesn't feel angular anymore because I did it so many times. But it is just so beautifully expressive, and really shows that you don't need good old fashioned tonality to be wonderfully expressive and so emotional.
Yeah. And I mentioned in my observations today, my little notes, getting ready to write the review a bit later, but these odd intervals are not stressed in their flow. So I mean, you have achieved a triumph in translation on cornet to be able to manage these intervallic distances and oddities, if you will, from that 12-tone idea concept, right. Which means it's a triumph, really. These odd gaps and intervals are not stressed in their flow. So you pulled that one off.
there's the syllabic stresses, a lot of two-syllable words, yeah, ah. So there's
Hmm.
there's a little bit there, but your average trumpet player, you think you see that wide interval, I'm going to smack the shit out, I'm going to really go for it. Yeah, I tried to go against my trumpet playing instincts as much as
Aha.
possible
Yeah,
across
very, very.
the whole
You've
CD.
just
Yeah,
described a very, very good exercise. Really, I mean, something that you needed to contemplate in order to make this piece
yeah,
work beautifully. Then you move on to Schaumburg,
yes,
um, Am Strande. I hope I'm close on the shore.
yes.
From Zwei Lieder, from again. Now we're at about 1909.
Hmm.
Rainier Marie Rilke, the famous
Yeah,
poet. Very interesting. I love the rumbling piano opening, which of course is from the aria, and then cornet comes in, and it all just works fine. Nice, powerful as a cornet voice. That cornet voicing.
totally. Yeah, and this is the recordings I listened to, baritone singing. So one of the only ones really. The rest of the range is typically mezzo soprano,
Mm-hmm.
soprano. So this was another one where I got to
That low
be in
register.
that dark side, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's so much text painting here. This it's at the beach, and it's sort of personifying the water, and then the sky and the stars, and upon you would never know this just by hearing it, but upon reading the score and listening to the poetry and everything, and I realized that there were sort of characters. The piano was the water, the trumpet was as I said, the stars and stuff, and then there's a moment or two where they come together, and that symbolizes something else.
Mm.
So it was a kind of a cool character study. Diving into this piece, it was just a ton of fun. A lot of these pieces I chose because I loved listening to it, and I thought that'd be great. And then once I really started researching more, I fell deeper and deeper and deeper in love with all these songs. So now all of them are incredibly close to my heart. And that's the thing that I love, about this CD, and that I hope my listeners, glean from this. I'm hoping that you can sort of enter in at any level, and maybe the more you listen, that you can read up about it, that you're able to get a little bit more each time, and think, oh, this is happening here, and this is happening in the text, and this is being conveyed. Um, so yeah,
But you also give us some really wonderful composers. I'm referring to the next piece, this Lily Boulanger piece,
yeah,
Attente, I guess, is the waiting, Attente, from Quatre Chante pour voix et piano. I'm awful.
yeah,
This is now 1912. Yes, I know I'm awful. Thank you. The poet is Maurice Maeterlinck.
yeah,
And it's what I mean about service is Lily Boulanger. I mean, I'm scratching my head trying to figure out when the last time I've heard anything. But she's finally beginning to surface a bit more.
yeah,
Prejudices and all of that are disappearing, and we're realizing she was just right up there with all the rest of them. But she happened to be a woman, I guess. So I said, go back and teach, or something. I'm sure it wasn't that bad. But tell us about this, because it's already lovely. So you chose yourself a beautiful aria,
it is.
and it's late romantic and all that good stuff. So this, as I say to myself, fits like a vocal glove for cornet.
Yes, it was. That one was it became. It didn't start out that way, but it became one of the favorite pieces on the album. And actually, a friend of mine, Nicholas Fan, he's a wonderful tenor, beautiful tenor. He released a CD of Lily and Nadia Boulanger songs a
Nice,
few years ago. It was nominated for a Grammy.
nice.
So I remember, when I was doing research and listening to a bunch of different things, and I didn't even realize it was, just putting it on. Voice sounds familiar, and I look at the thing. Oh my God,
Ah,
that's my
nice.
friend.
That's always nice.
It's really good. But it was just I love all of these French songs. Just everything is so. I don't speak French, and we know you don't.
You at least speak
But
German.
Yeah, well, I can
Somewhat, anyway, I
kind of
guess.
speak the words. I have no idea what they mean,
Uh,
but I can kind of say them.
if you say I'm fast, nobody, they think, oh,
Yeah,
he's really good. Anyway, yeah. Well,
the articulations, everything is so very very mushy,
mm, mm,
and the phrases just they slide together so nicely, and it was just a beautiful, the poetry again was it, that one took a lot of work to decipher what the heck that all meant.
yeah,
But there's some lovely, irony in there. There's a and at one point the peak of the song is talking about these lilies that never bloom, um, but the music is blooming, right? Where I go up to a high, concert G sharp, and the music and everything is blooming, but the poetry is decidedly not blooming. So it's kind of a fun, uh, uh, kind of a
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
blanking. I'm blanking on what it's called.
No,
What
okay, I want to jump in because,
kind of a juxtaposition.
and I want to jump
really
in
neat.
because everybody in music knows that Lily Boulanger was one of the great teachers of all
Yeah,
time, really. And
yeah,
so we should have expected nothing less. I
right.
realize we are beginning to realize. So of course her compositions are put together in exactly the same way she used to drive everybody crazy in composition class. Because she was so fussy and so articulate, and all these major composers had to go. I'm just thinking of Gershwin for just as an example. Learned so
Yeah,
much from. So it's a masterpiece, as one would expect now that we finally get our sexism out of the way, of
right.
Lily Boulanger. Uh,
No,
oh,
and that was a very important thing for me when choosing this repertoire. I am tired of 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 CDs, of concerts, of this and that, of music that is just only by white male composers. I've had it. I have no interest in, for the rest of my life. I'll be perfectly fine if I play no more programs with just straight white men. So it was,
hmm.
this is not enough. No offense. Again,
No offense,
not
I'm
not
gay.
not. Yeah. Oh, you. Oh, okay. Yeah. I knew I liked you. Yeah. But anyway, so it's I have no desire, and this is not out of tokenism either. It's this
Yeah,
music I fell absolutely in love with. So I was so happy to include these composers and frankly kind of show the trumpet world what kind of repertoire that we can access.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's some pieces in here that have been done, sure, and then there are other pieces that are brand new that I don't think any other trumpet player has done before. So I'm hoping to kind of kick the can forward, so to speak, to introduce uh,
and,
some more
and
inclusive
just
repertoire.
kind of touching on what you have said. It is very important now in the 21st century, when the entire Encyclopedia Britannica is at our call. We go, what is? I mean, it's like you have to be an idiot to be illiterate, and unfortunately, far too many still are, with a computer. But we now finally, just as we're uncovering the truth of history, even that's been, the winners write the history. I mean, it's just been it's so. I think if this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, I think this is what we're possibly going into, despite all the struggles and all the other things. It's just an enlightenment, a real enlightenment. So I salute you on that. We're going to talk about some others a little further down on the program, but I think it's very important. And about your anecdote, and then I'll let you jump in here. I will. It isn't snotty, and yet it's just, there has to be change. I'm thinking of Beethoven 9. I am now crystal clear about the tempo markings. Crystal clear. And they're fast, and faster. And he complained about everything being too slow from the very get-go. And then they said, oh, well, he's just deaf. Or, well, his metronome must be broken. I mean, just stupid responses to that. But I have the same
Yeah,
problem. I just can't hear the old Beethoven 9 anymore. So
yeah,
yeah. And it's not being snooty. It's just that there's only one way to change things, and that's to accept the new realities of what we finally know from history and all the rest of it. Olivier
amen to that.
Messiaen,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
uh, Le Sourire, the smile from Trio. Here I go again. Trio Mélodie, 1930. The poet is It's a poet, right? Cécile Sauvage.
Yeah, Cécile Sauvage, Messiaen's mother.
What? So
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
It's a
So
woman. I had no idea.
yes,
Wow.
this is early Messiaen, and actually Andrew Welch was happy to do this one. He wrote his dissertation on the works of Messiaen too. So the later
Nice.
works. So this was a real treat.
Yeah.
I mean, just a beautiful exercise in color,
Yeah.
in timbre. Everything is just so still, and every single note, is it matters, entirely, and it's painted beautifully. So that was, and one of the most intimate pieces on the album, I think.
And my
Yeah,
little note to myself is kind of an odd one, but I think you've just described it. Quite minimalist in colors, even.
yeah,
The colors are
the,
not to say flat, but they're minimalist. There's no need, kind of, I'm thinking of him watching birds even. I mean, the whole thing about Messiaen, this mystic, really, a human being that was a real mystic. Um, and again, you have shaped the colors so that the cornet, as per although I never really have heard this with a voice, this is a reflective kind of timbre, if that makes any sense at all, that you
yeah.
have used with the main, this wonderful motive in the piece. Uh,
You can hear there are some moments in there where you get little tiny, it's almost a precursor of things to come for his writing, which would, I think he was 18 or something when he
oh,
wrote this.
really? Huh.
Yeah, so very, very early, but you get little hints. There's some chords in the piano where it's like, oh, that's a little crunchy. Okay, I see where we're going. So and those, they're just tasty. I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
and those of us in the profession, of course, the Quartet for the End of Time, written during incarceration, if for
yeah,
lack of the more horrible word, during the World War II, 1943 or 4, something like that, when he wrote
yeah.
it. But now that I'm clear, I had no thank you for Cécile Sauvage. Actually, I should
Right.
have looked her up.
Beautiful
Duh.
poetry. Yeah,
I just didn't have time. Okay, but that changes everything, really.
yeah.
Maurice Ravel, Chanson. Oh, wow. I hope I didn't screw that one up. And this is a series of drinking songs. Yeah, kind of, sort of. It's a little set,
Um,
isn't it?
I think this is the one drinking song of the set.
From that set, the Don Quixote
From that set. Yeah, Don
Dulcinea.
Quixote. There are three songs in there, and this one is the drinking song, and just this one is, and I've heard it done on trumpet before, so I know it's been done. A lot of people were doing these embellishments and stuff, and I kind of just stuck to the original score and tried to bring out as much of that.
Absolutely.
There's some, you know,
It's bright,
teeter
it's
tottering.
fun,
There's some hiccuping. There's, it's just it's a rip roaring good time. And this, there are only a couple songs on this album where more fast paced. This is one of them.
and it
it was
has that
just,
that
yeah,
España kind of yummy, fun, drinking, dancing Spaniards, of course.
absolutely, yeah,
Which is the piece all by itself.
right.
So we're almost simultaneous.
Which is all French music, is it not? Yeah, but I'm kidding.
I don't want to go there. I had an issue recently in a review about Bizet and who was the other guy? And Rimsky-Korsakov. I said neither of them had set foot on Spanish soil. Guess what? Rimsky had 3-day leave or something at some point and visited Barcelona, so people slapped me around about that one. Anyway, now I love, excuse me, I love Francis Poulenc.
Yeah,
And by the way, I think we've done with the Ravel. It's just a spunky, fun, dancerly, as we described probably ad nauseum, dancing drunken Spaniards. It fits the national character perfectly.
what's not to love? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at this Francis Poulenc, Fleur. This is a word I have trouble with. You'll correct me, I hope. Fiancelle pour rire, which is engagement for laughter. That was my literal translation. It must be a little less literal in translation. From 1939, the brink of the war.
Yeah.
Of the Second World War, and he went through the whole war, and maintained, I think, a kind of high spirit, even as others, had trouble in dealing with that catastrophe. Glorious in translation, I say to myself. Tell me about it.
Yeah, this one was the hardest one to record on the whole album. Um, Believe it or not, it was the most difficult, required the most takes out of anything. Just to get it right. In this
Mm.
one, more than Liebesdümenschönheit, just sits up there, and you have no rest. And so
Right.
that presented quite a challenge. But man, it is, it's just beautiful. The poetry is, it sounds like a beautiful song, and it is beautiful, but there's some bitterness there. It talks about, the person is burning, letters, I think, of an old love at the fireplace.
Mm.
Someone, where that love is come and gone. So there's I think, and reading. I actually have the book. Uh, it's up there somewhere. A book on.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Pierre Bernac.
By the way, your beard is very well trimmed. I salute you.
Oh, thank you. I did it just for you. Yeah, yeah. Here, let me see if I'll grab it and
Sure,
show you.
sure.
Um, this was, yeah, Pierre
Okay.
Bernac. Toured with Poulenc.
Oh yeah,
Was
yeah,
a
yeah.
fabulous singer.
Oh,
So this book
nice.
was like, my saving grace for this.
Invaluable. Yeah.
It is essentially, a manual for how to approach his songs, um, and they made he made it very clear not to indulge too much, because this is not a sentimental song. You probably want to move a ton with the time. And even Andrew didn't want me to do as much as I did, but we had to
Mm-hmm.
compromise.
And now you
So
mention it, I think in my mind, yes, I love Francis Poulenc and I love the sort of jolly brightness, but you have again kind of reminded me that underneath there, during the war years, there he's quite clear. He's not an escapist. He's quite clear what's coming and as it takes place. So,
right,
but
and contrary to the title, fleur, you think flowers. Oh well, this is nice. This is pretty. And then you read the text and you think, oh, there's some. This is bittersweet.
mm,
This is not. There's a lot more that meets the eye, and yeah, just another
it's interesting that
just
you
beautiful piece.
described this as really one of the toughest pieces to put together, if I understood you correctly, because I say, oh, the register is perfect for cornet.
And Andrew said, as we record, oh yeah, we'll just knock this one out. I said, the hell we will.
Uh-huh.
This is but on paper looks really simple. And I think, compared to other instruments, violin, easy, flute, easy, trumpet, where you're dealing with this on your face,
Mm,
you're on borrowed time,
mm.
right? So sustaining that line for several pages in that register it's more challenging than we would think. But I hope that didn't come across in the performance. I hope it sounded easy.
Well, apparently,
Thank God for editing. But
apparently it didn't bother me any. I thought it was just exactly the perfect. I had no idea you were in a
yeah,
certain amount of agony. I'm reminded of
right,
William Bolkin's new horn trio. I just interviewed the horn player, and horn. I mean, it has a mind of its own always, and it was just a miracle, really.
yeah,
Because the writing is all over the place, up and down, and huge intervals and everything, and it in that particular sense that the French hornisting questioned us beautifully. Okay, now we I want to move on to two, and again you do this wonderful thing, two pieces by Charles Ives,
yeah,
Soliloquy from 1917, and then I thought as I saw it coming, the Housatonic at Stockbridge, I thought from 1921. Again, I love that. But you talk about taking risks again. I mean, everybody knows this Housatonic. I'm not East Coast at Stockbridge uh, uh, tune, but I guess I forgot there was a text to it because I think I hear it. Don't I hear it in one of the symphonies or something? Yeah, number three
you
or
do.
something.
Yes, yes.
It,
Oh God, I should not the
you're the
Holiday Symphony. I forget what it is,
you're
but
the
um,
PhD. Come on, come
yeah,
on. But yeah, I
I get
think
the
I
PhD
want to say
somewhere.
Symphony Number It's one of the movements of Symphony Number 3 or something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But
So and this was really fun, kind of a trip. This is like a transcription of a transcription of a transcription. So originally, it's written for orchestra,
yeah.
and then he rewrote this as a song. So he must have had the text in his mind, and I could do a little bit more research about this. The text is overlaid so beautifully, and I think he had this poem by Robert Underwood Johnson, transcendentalist poet. Um, in mind. There's also a hymn in there, which is no surprise, right? And that's Ives. Um, so it's funny that he transcribed that work for voice, and then now I'm transcribing that work for voice. Back to instruments only, and at a certain point, so I was actually looking at both scores, to kind of see, and at a certain point, um, I'm playing. I'm playing the vocal part, but the vocal part was playing the trumpet part towards the end. Yum bum 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 ba bum bum. So it's from trumpet to voice back to trumpet. I thought that was just kind of a trip.
Something about
Yeah,
brain, you know what? Interesting, but also for me, I've focused on the orchestral.
yeah,
Uh, I had no idea that he then found text for it. That changes everything. If I'm too old now, but if I were ever as a conductor to go back and look at this, and of course every conductor out there watching is saying, "Oh, you fool!" Of course we all knew that, and we all do that. But
yeah,
here's what I want to talk about. And again, it's that I call it a kind of mysteriously foggy. You can just almost see the, you know what I mean, the low mist hanging on the river.
yeah,
I mean, it's just so full of imaginative imagery, and this idea again that it works so beautifully for cornet. It's such a what do you call that? A call across the foggy river sort of instrument, if you
yeah.
will. Cornet creates a haunting sound, an ambiance that seems really perfect. This misty river vibe. Yeah, am
I
I
thought I
close?
thought that was one of the easiest ones just play, and
It
it
just
kind of played itself. I
yeah.
mean, obviously, you shape the words. It was super easy to shape the words there, and
Mm.
the text is just so brilliantly written. It was yeah, definitely. Next time you end up conducting that or something, to check out
Dream on.
the vocal score.
But just for my own
Yeah,
sake now, when this comes up again in my life as a critic in my old age, this is going to change a lot. I will go to the poem, and it always informs.
yeah,
And then, as if what you put this together like 2 years ago. First of all, you have one of my favorite composers, Libby Larsen, but Florence Price is
yeah.
suddenly, bless her, finally, her Symphony Number One, all this
Hmm.
amazing literature that, may I use the word suppressed? You know what I mean? About how
Yeah,
women have been treated. And by the way, I'm as sexist as anybody in that I was a conductor when I was younger. I thought women were horrible as conductors.
yeah,
I ate hook, line, and sinker every single stereotype that was fed to me. So it's very dangerous. I'm glad we're breaking these things. So many
yeah.
brilliant women conductors now. Brilliant. And
Oh my God,
I
yeah.
personally believe that women should run the whole planet. So I now really am
Amen
grateful.
to that. Yeah,
I'm grateful to see women in roles as conductors because, of course, they're the most sensitive, the most thoughtful, all of it. They're meant to be conductors, if you will. So
right.
anyway, Florence Price, Night from 1946. The poet is Louise C. Wallace. I liked it immediately.
Oh,
Congrats.
just
Tell me about
just
it.
stunning evocative poetry. um Night calls a Madonna clad in I forget the text, something about red lips, rose.
Mm.
Sort of this is the personification of night. At the end of the day, and night is personified as this sort of Virgin Mary, although it's sort of almost exoticized. So it's very interesting, talking about her rose red lips and everything. But just this is one that you can hear and think that it's very simple, and the more you dive in, it's like wow.
And it's a
Um,
gorgeous
it's
melody.
it's
It's just a beautiful, moving
yeah,
melody. Really lovely. And when you said Madonna,
yeah.
I instantly thought, because it's possibly true, and then you did the red lips. I wasn't thinking of that Madonna. I was
You
thinking, I
a
was thinking
different
of
red
our
lip.
Madonna. And you know what? Think about her, dresses at some of her personae that she creates with these fabulous dresses. Yeah,
Right.
oof. Anyway, enough. That got us off.
Like a
But
virgin. Yeah,
there
yeah.
you
There
go.
we go.
See, I mean, she's so brilliant, so brilliant. Madonna. Anyway, Leslie Adams. Now, I really had not heard of Leslie Adams. of course, most of the time I've been chasing other stuff
Right.
instead of leader repertoire. But Prayer from 1961, from Night Songs, and this is Langston Hughes. And I lived in
Yeah.
Seattle, and I love theater, so Langston Hughes, the playwright, works beautifully. Again, the whole last like 5 or 6 just work perfectly for cornet in translation.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Prayer from 1961.
I was reminded. So Mark Gould was kind enough to write a review. Mark Gould was the principal trumpet of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, taught at Juilliard for many years, and had lots of nice things to say. He actually said, he said, I normally hate trumpet versions of Mahler songs, but you changed my mind. I thought that was pretty neat. But what he said about the Leslie Adams when we were talking, I don't remember if it was in the review or if we were just talking about, but this could be a jazz standard. There's just something, so soulful about the accompaniment, which is very, it's prayer. So it's very meditative. It's very, it is rather minimal, but it brings you into that headspace of it is a meditation. It's a prayer, and to pair it with the brilliant poetry of Langston Hughes, I think it's a very timely piece to be playing. The text is, I ask you this, which way to go? I ask you this, which sin to bear? Which crown should I wear on my head? Lord God, I do not know. And, just a very, very profound poetry here, and made even more profound, with this music setting. Leslie Adams, he's an African-American composer. I have a special connection to him and his music. This comes from his Night Song. There was another song in the cycle, Creole Girl, which is a lot of fun. I wanted to do it for the album too, and just had to cut it for time. But he is an Oberlin alum, and that's where I did my undergraduate studies. So it was a real treat to be able to program his music.
Now, straighten me out so I don't get in trouble later when I write the review, because I see the words rich mid-range. Is that a mid-range cornet area to be playing in the Leslie Adams? Would mid-range be accurate or not?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty mid-range. It doesn't really go below the staff, and it just goes a little bit above. Yeah,
because I call it the sweet spot of the instrument. So I wanted to make sure I didn't want to make a fool of myself on that. Okay, thank you. All right.
Actually, and what key is it in? It's maybe in G flat major or something. So that it's rich in that key. It's so far away from home.
And does that work on the instrument? That if
it
that
works
is
great.
the key,
Yeah.
It works fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I think that key really puts you in. It's brilliant. Putting something in a certain key can really just change your whole perception. It puts you in that meditative headspace. It's just
as we've known since about 1663. You know what I mean? The volume that describes every single mood and
all
key
the
areas
associations and everything.
And I remember when I was a kid, I thought this is nonsense. Duh, I was so stupid. Anyway, but exactly, and that's the beauty, the magic of our art. We penetrate right to the soul. Sound penetrates right to the soul. Not to sound too corny. Okay, Libby Larsen, my favorite, and this is a cutie. There are two arias from Love After 1950, which is hilarious all by itself. The first Libby Larsen piece. Let me give you the titles, and then you can plow in here. The first aria is Boy's Lips, 1950.
Go.
This is Rita Dove, by the way, the poet.
Yes, Rita Dove. I have her a book somewhere, and she gave me her blessing to use her her poetry. She told me that it sounded beautiful, which I was very touched by. This whole set is just a lot of fun. It's written by Libby Larsen, using written by a women poets and everything. Yeah. So there is a distinctly a woman's perspective, right? So
and it's very American. That jazz, that subtle jazz influence in the first piece, let alone the second.
Yeah, and I'll get into that too, just the
genius
of her writing.
Let me give the title of that second one, and let's commingle the two of them. Again by Libby Larsen, Big Sister Says.
Yeah.
1967. I just love she's so good. From Love After 1950. The poet in this case is Catherine Daniels. Lots of fun from the
Lots
get-go.
of fun. So these two tunes, I fell in love with both of them. The first one, "Boy's Lips," is it's sort of a coming of age poem about
From a girl's point of view.
from a young girl's point of view, talking about where hiding behind grandmother's porch, and we knelt in the tickling grasses, and
Mm.
this one girl leaned over and said, "A boy's lips are soft as baby skin."
Ooh.
And there's this beautiful coming of age, but evocative, sensual imagery that is overlaid with the blues genre, which is we come to associate it with those very same things, this sensuality, and that's the genius of her music. And actually, so it's "Boy's Lips," and then the subtitle or the subtext for the piece, it says "a blues."
Mm.
So it's
Which is
she's
perfect,
creating,
by the
she's
way.
creating a musical association to help the listeners understand the text. It's music informs music, and
Yeah.
it's great. And then the Big Sister Says, which is all about how beauty hurts. Talking about the stinking depilatory cream and yanking a hank of my lanky hair, and pressing my eyelashes like some sort of medieval torture device. It's so chaotic, and really speaks to what women have to go through in order to be beautiful. You have to go through pain.
Especially in
And then
1967, as in Hairspray,
right,
as in the musical
right,
Hairspray. Yeah.
yeah, and that's overlaid by a honky tonk genre. It's
Boogie
Jerry
Woogie.
Lewis, yeah, gun 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 gun. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that sort of chaos and that raucous, and there is sort of a sexual nature to that too. So all of this was just so fun to approach, and to approach through a queer lens too. Not trying to. Uh, I try to do this out of respect, not to like put my stamp on and say this is
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah,
me,
yeah.
but from my limited perspective as a gay man, I can certainly relate to this coming of age, and this wanting to be beautiful and having to it was just
Remember puberty?
so much,
Total,
yeah, right,
total horniness.
yeah. Well, no,
100%
I
horniness.
blocked all that out of my
Oh,
memory.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
74, and you know what? There's still a twinkle in my eye. Okay, but
Right.
yeah. So I love that you chose Libby Larsen. I'm trying to remember the piece that I did conduct at Four Movements. I think it was about ponds. It's been years and years and years ago, but she
Mm,
describes four different, like New England ponds. And
okay.
it's just like spellbinding because, again, she is so capable of narrative, beautiful narrative in sound, narrative and sound. These two are just really cute.
And
Uh,
she knows how to write for trumpet. I mean, she Ridge Runner, a beautiful piece for trumpet. She wrote a
I've
trumpet
heard,
concerto.
yeah.
So it's she's I'm just so glad that she is on this earth writing music, because it is just I couldn't have thought of a better couple songs to end the CD with. And it was just
But to remind us all,
all of it was fun, but that was particularly just so much joy went into that.
but to remind us all what you have just said, which I want to remind everybody, these are not two trumpet pieces. These are two arias for voice and piano, and
Right.
you also indicate that she knows what she's doing. So she apparently knows what she's doing all right, and it works as per your translation of the line that you've turned into a cornet line. Okay,
Right.
what I'm
And
getting at is
and the nature of the jazz and the honky tonk too, it lends itself to trumpet.
yeah, no, that's
So
what I
that
thought
was,
too. Yeah, perfect, just
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Okay, well, unbelievably, where are we? Are we? Oh, we're quite a bit over. I suppose we'll get about two people that will sit through the whole thing. I don't care. I hope you don't. I say this too often, uh,
Yeah.
but this whole bit about, oh well, you have to do it in 5 minutes or the American public will be bored. Well, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
We weren't bored this whole
We
time,
weren't
so
bored.
that's all that
Yeah,
matters.
we entertained ourselves beautifully. Okay, I think we'd better wind it down though. Wonderful chat with American trumpet virtuoso, and that's true. I think that's okay. Luke
I'm
Spence.
fine with that.
And again, that's why I was so interested. This really fascinating 2022 release. with Andrew Welsh, the pianist, should I say collaborative pianist, which he certainly is. 20th Century Art Songs Translations for cornet and piano. Any last thoughts you want to send us off with? Have we missed anything crucial?
Oh God, no! I think any more, and you know, I, we basically just went over my whole dissertation, so I don't know. You know, I don't.
Ah, perfect.
I think we covered quite a lot of ground.
Okay,
Very
good.
thorough. Yeah,
Uh, all right,
fantastic.
Luke, it's been a great pleasure chatting with you, and perhaps another couple, 3 years when the funding comes together, you might put out something else. That. But by the way,
We'll chat then.
and by the way, we all in the business and all the people that are watching this know exactly that process. It's hard. It takes years. You have to find funding here, there, and everywhere, including selling the cat, and. So it's not easy. So I'm always just tremendously respectful of anybody that gets their act together and puts out a CD. And in this case, it's perfect. The film, the CD, it's all your dissertation. That's the way to go. Luke, many thanks.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's
See
been
ya.
a pleasure.
See ya.